Elon Musk and others. Right now, they're in the halcyon moment with Donald Trump, but they will come to the Hades moment with him. It's just a matter of time because you're not going to be able to do some of the things that he wants you to do. And a lot of these people won't be able to put themselves in these moral pretzels that
Yeah.
Donald Trump wants to twist you into. There is a reason why 40 of us tried to tell the American people what the danger was.
And we've been joined by Anthony Scaramucci, the former Donald Trump communications director turned into, well, a strong opponent of Donald Trump, to put it mildly. And he's on the line. Welcome to you, Anthony.
Not apparently not strong enough. I mean, definitely a strong opponent, but congratulations to him. He pulled out quite a victory.
He certainly did. And maybe there's nothing you could have done about that, Anthony. But let me ask you about that. I mean, you said, all over the world, millions of people heard you saying that Kamala Harris would win and win big. I don't want to rub your nose in that. A lot of people thought she was going to do okay.
Listen, it's okay to rub my nose in it. I got something wrong. It's like you have to.
Yeah.
You have to own up to things when you get things wrong. I missized his support. Ultimately, if you don't mind, I'll tell a quick allegory. There was a meme for her. It was a father standing in the polling booth, and the little girl was asking her, "Dad, who are you voting for?" And he looked down at her and said, "I'm voting for you." The implication was reproductive freedom, etc.
Yes.
But that's actually not what happened. I thought that was going to happen. What happened was there was a mom in that voting booth looking down at her son, and the son asking that question. Because if you look at the crosstabs and you look at the data, 46% of the women voted for Donald Trump because they don't like the woke culture and they don't like what the woke culture is doing to their young boys. And that was something I missed. And listen, I have to own that. It won't be the last mistake I make in my life, trust me. But I think the Democrats have to now have a reckoning with themselves in terms of what their messaging is and what their narrative is. You don't want to be scolds in life. I don't think that's helping anybody. Condescending prigs probably don't win elections.
Yeah. I mean, look, Anthony, I'm assuming you still consider yourself a Republican, do you? Though not a Trump Republican.
Yeah, no, listen, I've been a lifelong Republican. I don't like the rhetoric that Mr. Trump's talking about. I mean, we can go over it if you want. He's talking about using the American military against his adversaries. I guess that would include me. He's talking about non-white immigrants to the country in a very dehumanizing way. The language is not the language of an American democracy. It's the language of an autocrat. And I think it's very, very dangerous. And I want my fellow Americans, if they can't love each other, I certainly want everybody to love each other. If you can't do that, let's respect each other. But he was doing things that were outside of the norms while he was president, and he was doing things outside of the norms while he was campaigning. And so let's see what he does now with another 4 years that the American people have bestowed on him to lead the country. But I don't like it, and I think people have to speak out about it if they love the country.
Yeah, well, we'll see what he does. And I wonder what more people can do beyond simply speaking out. I mean, in your case, you're not the only Republican who came down against Donald Trump. Liz Cheney famously did, former Congresswoman, her father, Dick Cheney, vice president to George W. Bush. I mean, no one would ever mistake Dick Cheney for a liberal. He was as conservative as it gets, often called a neocon. He was against Donald Trump. And I was talking just a short while ago here on the program to another former congressman, Republican, Joe Walsh, and he was telling me how the party, the party that he fell in love with, he said it was dead, despite, after what happened in this election. So I asked him, where does he go now?
Yeah, I'm not going to sit still. I'm still young enough. I'm not going to sit still. I can see Liz Cheney and my friend Adam Kinzinger and a number of us putting together something new. I can see a number of us becoming Democrats. The point is, we're all sort of disparate right now. Now that this election's come and gone and we lost big time, I think all of us in this politically homeless space need to come together and chart our way forward. But I intend to be at the front of that.
So it's Joe Walsh there talking about, jumping ship, maybe starting a new party with like-minded friends and colleagues, maybe even joining the Democrats. Anthony Scaramucci, are you thinking of any such thing?
It's a little early for me. I have to let some time pass and try to make that decision very carefully. I think the Republican Party that I knew, the one that Joe's speaking about there, is long gone. Donald Trump,
Dead
the
for good,
history
you
book,
think, Anthony? Dead for good?
I do think so. Yes, I think gone and put away. R.I.P. The death actually took place on November the 7th. It died. I mean, or the November the 5th. I meant to say. It was gasping and dying in 2016. Trump finished it on election day. And look, it is what it is. He was actually a third party insurgent. He very wisely took control of one of the two traditional parties. It was a hostile takeover. He dumped himself and his philosophy into that party, and then he scared the daylights out of any of the traditionalists, and so they conformed to him. And they're all there. They denounced him profusely, and then they supported him. Paul Ryan is the rare exception. He said, "Okay, I can't stomach this. I'm going to leave," and he stepped down from being the Speaker of the House, and he left the Congress. And so these other guys, they fell in line with him. And let me tell you something: the people that are going to go work for him, the day of their demise starts on the first day of that job. And they'll keep that job if they're willing to compromise their principles and compromise their ethics. If they're not willing to do that, they'll be in a food fight with him very shortly thereafter. They'll be getting lit up by him on Truth Social. Elon Musk and others, right now, they're in the halcyon moment with Donald Trump, but they will come to the Hades moment with him. It's just a matter of time, because you're not going to be able to do some of the things that he wants you to do. And a lot of these people won't be able to put themselves in these moral pretzels that Donald Trump wants to twist you into. There is a reason why 40 of us tried to tell the American people what the danger was. But the democracy has spoken. The people have spoken. And I'm a good sport, and I'm not a sore loser. But I have to think about what I'll be doing politically.
Yes.
And I think we've got to wait a little bit of time for that.
Okay, it's going to be so fascinating to see how, I suppose, tortured Republicans like yourself deal with these dilemmas. Just the last few moments of the program, I want to talk about what's going on at the moment, which is Donald Trump and his team considering major appointments to his closest team in the White House, who are going to be deciding so much when it comes to this really, really radical agenda. We're looking at one of the networks earlier on. It was CNN. They floated the possibility of Marjorie Taylor Greene, the absolutely fiery Georgia congresswoman, becoming Homeland Security Secretary. Well, it stoked a memory in the minds of me and my team here in Washington, because we were all in Milwaukee a couple of months back for the Republican National Convention. And one of our team, a multimedia reporter, Joe Crawford, talked to Marjorie Taylor Greene there. It wasn't the friendliest conversation. Let's remember it back.
I have some of the most highest amount of death threats because of people like you, because you choose to only take certain words from people, and then that's what you want to report. Shame on you. Shame on you.
But
because
where's your evidence?
No. You're the problem. And where's this woman from?
The Times.
You're
London.
from the Times? Okay, you're ridiculous. And you're the problem in our country. You lie about people like me. This is the first time you've ever talked to me. I want you to know I'm a regular person like you. I'm also a mom. I have 3 kids. And we have to put up with the most unreal amount of bullshit because of little liars like you that take your job and turn it into political activism. Your job is the press. You should report the news, not lie. No, not lie about it. You don't get to ask any more questions. I'm done with you. Because you're the cause. You're
One
the
more
cause
thing. You
of
call
our
the
country.
Democrats a
No.
party
You're
of
the cause of
pedophiles.
our
Do you have any
country being
response to
divided.
that?
You're the cause of our country being divided. You're the cause of President Trump almost being assassinated. You're the cause of everything wrong
where's
in
your
America.
evidence for those claims?
No, you're done. You're done. Yeah, go back.
Thank
Go back.
you.
Well, that was not what you call a friendly interview. Anthony Scaramucci, what do you think about the idea? It may never happen, but the idea of Marjorie Taylor Greene entering the higher ranks of the cabinet under Donald Trump.
Well, I mean, she would be better than my old friend Tom Toman. Tom is talking about revoking birthright citizenship. So if your mom was here in the country and she had birth to you, but she wasn't naturalized properly, they would revoke your citizenship and they'd round all of you guys up and deport you. So I don't know. I mean, I will have to see what really happens here. If they live up to every promise, they will destroy the fabric of the country. They're talking about 15 million deportations. Even if they did 1.8 million, which is the size of our prison population, that's an $88 billion expense to the taxpayer. It'll crush our GDP. It'll hurt our tax revenues, our Social Security trust. So I don't know. We'll have to see if these guys really mean what they say, we're in for a lot of dystopian stuff. If they don't mean what they say and they try to govern like moderate Republicans, they're inheriting a great economy from Joe Biden's team. So we'll see, sir.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's certainly going to be plenty of headlines before and on the way to big, extraordinary decisions. Look,
You
talking
got
about
a
big
room for me.
headlines,
You got room for me at the Times Radio. I may need to
plenty of
sleep
room.
under your. I may need to sleep under your desk.
There's an open door for you, Anthony Scaramucci. Let me just
I
mention a story
appreciate
now
it.
breaking in the Times right now. The possibility being floated, being argued for, of Prince Harry being deported from this country under Donald Trump. You'll be aware of that controversy about his visa application over the suggestion of past drug use. Can you imagine Prince Harry being put on a plane, Anthony?
Well, no, but I could imagine the possibility of a journalist being jailed in this country now. I would have never said that. I'm 60 years old. I would have never said that for the first 59 and a half years of my life. But now I think we're going to be doing things. And what happens is we'll be doing things. There'll be some outrage. There'll be some ignoring of the outrage. And then they'll boil the frog a little bit harder.
I'm joined now by Sarah Churchwell, Professor of American Literature and Public Understanding of the Humanities at the University of London. Good morning, Sarah.
Morning.
Good morning. And the historian Sir Max Hastings. Good morning, Max.
Good morning.
Good morning, both. Look, Sarah, I'll start with you. Is this the biggest political upset in American history?
Yeah, very possibly. Look, everybody is going to be, everybody's in a state of shock and everybody is processing this quickly. So when we try to assess the historical consequence of this, we'll have to see how it all shakes out. But it's hard to think of, certainly in modern times, there is no more consequential one. And other than the election of Abraham Lincoln, it's hard to think of anything that has been more consequential. Now, I should say, without wanting to be pedantic or to sound like I'm, smoking, as we say, hopium, he has not reached the 270 electoral votes, and she has not conceded. So let's be clear about that. There are a few states that are that are yet to call, but certainly it is looking that way, and certainly almost 70 million Americans have cast a vote for him. So that is certainly the picture that we're looking at. And the first election of Trump in 2016 was a huge shock around the world and to millions of Americans like myself. But I thought this one would be worse, but actually it isn't. And I've spoken to a lot of Americans this morning who feel the same way because we know we've all seen what happened over the last 8 years, and this time people can't say that they didn't know what they were voting for. They have chosen this, and we will all see what it means for the United States and indeed for the world, for an enormous number of consequential issues around the world that that this will shape and very possibly do great harm to. But everybody watching has seen the same thing. We all know what it is that just got done, and the Americans have said that the American people appear to say that this is what they want. So now we know who they are, I guess.
Sure, I guess so. So Max Hastings, people are comparing this to 1968, so when Lyndon Johnson realized he wasn't going to win and handed over to his vice president, who was defeated by Richard Nixon. Are there parallels there?
There are parallels, but I think this is far worse because Richard Nixon was highly intelligent, and although we know the Watergate horror story that unfolded in the early 1970s, but Nixon was a far, far more substantial figure than Trump. I wasn't shocked by this outcome, and unlike Sarah, I'm afraid one does regard this as a done deal. But I always remember when I first lived in America in 1967-68, and one was told again and again, the United States is a very conservative country. And that's what made me think I felt that the Democratic cause was doomed when they chose Kamala Harris, because I just did not believe they would go for a black woman. I'm afraid that Americans are very, very conservative. And actually, what is most scary, I think, about the result, we know the worst about Trump, and we do think most of us think he's a completely unfit person to be president of the United States, far less leader of the Western world. But what is more scary is what it says about the American people and about the degree to which they are now arriving at decisions like this on the basis of I mean, social media has played a huge part, of course, that disinformation, when we all look back 20 years, when we thought that the internet might signal a new age, an information-rich age, it's actually ushered in a new age of information poverty, of disinformation. And it's very scary what it says both about the way that American politics now function and about the American people. But I always remember a survey, about 3 or 4 years ago now, by Zurich University about the gullibility of respective Western nations, their susceptibility to disinformation. And as I recollect the exact figure, the Finns featured lowest. They were least susceptible to disinformation. We were somewhere in the middle of the scale, but we were also pretty robust. The United States was by far the lowest in being by far the most ready to believe every kind of conspiracy theory and quack thesis.
Max, I mean, I could understand that argument as relates to, say, Trump's last victory, but what sort of disinformation do you think has been particularly rife, that's been particularly significant this time? It seems to me that, I mean, depressingly for some, the American people have actually been rather clear-eyed in what they wanted.
There's been a torrent of, I mean, to give one example, I mean, I think we're all going to have to come to terms with a Europe without the American shield. I'm very apprehensive, as many others are, about the willingness of Europe, not just Britain, but all of Europe to step up if Trump, as we fear, pulls away in some degree. But one of the things that the Democrats have failed to get across to the American people is American leadership of the West since the 1940s has actually been incredibly good for America and for the American economy as well as for us. And what is scary is that Trump, who views all international relations as transactional, he's got across a message to the American people that they have profited or they have been exploited by the rest of the world. And yes, it is absolutely true that Europeans in general, including Britain, have not paid our share of defense costs. At the same time, the United States has whacked rich and powerful as the leader of the West, and it's going to suffer almost as much as we're going to suffer from the policies Trump's proposing.
Sarah Churchwell, the Harris campaign tried to make out that Trump was a fascist, portrayed him as a fascist. Would you say that was a mistake? And did Americans not believe that, or did they sort of acknowledge it but not care? What do you think?
I think it was a mix of both, and I agree with Max actually about the role of disinformation here. And you know, I'll give you another example. I mean, there are many examples we can point to, but one is the economy. As Max was just alluding to here, the Americans feel that because inflation has gone up and their prices have gone up, that somehow the Biden economy is failing, when in fact the Biden economy is outperforming most major post-pandemic economies. Everybody is feeling the hit, but Americans seem unable to put themselves into that kind of context. And this is where I think ideas like American exceptionalism, which academics like to throw around, but this idea that Americans think they have a kind of unique set of special rules that apply to them only. And so they're supposed to somehow be, insulated from the problems of the rest of the world. And if the economy is going bad, well, that is Joe Biden's fault. And then the idea that Donald Trump will fix it, well, that is misinformation. The idea that Donald Trump's tariffs are going to do anything for the American economy, that it will do anything for the working class, that any of his policies are going to help people who feel that they're struggling. The Biden economy is actually helping them, even though it hasn't helped them enough. I'm not saying that people who are economically struggling aren't. They are. But the point is that now they're going to struggle worse. And we also need to factor in the people around Trump. Elon Musk, obviously, an enormous amount of misinformation was pouring out of Musk and out of his Twitter channels, and some of the his PAC and his super PAC were pouring information out about some of their usual stuff about Kamala being a socialist. I agree with Max that there is no way we can look at this election and not think that racism played a role, whatever they may say about the role of the economy in the choice that they made. It's impossible not to conclude that that had something to do with it. So there are things that people are admitting and not admitting, probably not even to themselves, about what drove their choices. But also, let's not leave out things like the RFK, who is the anti-vax aspect of this, which of course is a movement that we see here in the UK as well. All of these conspiratorial ways of thinking or misinformed or disinformed ways of thinking about what it is that Trump actually stands for and what it is that he'll actually do. And so what they were told is that it was the Democrats who were full of misinformation and were lying and were going to ruin the economy. And a lot of them seem to have believed it.
Sorry, Max, just very quickly, just to let you know, another swing state, Wisconsin, has just gone to Trump, meaning I believe he now has 277 electoral college votes, more than the 270 needed to win the overall race. So as you say, Sarah, that isn't indeed it. Max, sorry, you were saying?
I do think that over and above what we're saying about disinformation, that the Democrats, the progressive agenda on race and gender has done enormous damage to the democratic cause. I think a great many Americans resist what has seemed to be sometimes a democratic obsession with issues of gender and race, which actually many Americans, it's not so much they disagree, there are a lot of other things they care about more. And I think the Democrats, if they want to regain power in the United States, as many of us hope they will, they're going to have to rethink their pet obsessions, as some of us would see it, which some of us have also thought were pretty cranky. So beyond the disinformation put out about the Democrats, some of the stuff has been real information about the Democrats' real, some of us think, very ill-advised agenda.
Sorry, Sarah. No, please.
Well, I was just going to say two quick things about that. First of all, Harris did not center race and gender in her campaign. She is a Black woman. That was, unavoidable. But she was not talking about race and gender as a reason why people should vote for her. As for we can have quite a robust argument, Max, about who was crankier in this campaign. But I'm going to go very strongly with. We also need to remember the role of the theocrat Christian evangelical movements in this as well, who I also regard, I'm afraid, as highly cranky. People who think that the church should be in charge of all aspects of American government, including now, unfortunately, again, it looks like the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who is third in line to the presidency, and J.D. Vance, who is now going to be I guess, the vice president elect. And we need to remember that also where Trump is, both in terms of what seems to be his cognitive state, his current mental position. I'm not going to use, incendiary language here, but we've all been watching his incoherence grow, his lack of control and impulse control on the campaign trail. And he is now going to be preoccupied with stopping the investigations into his criminal activity and with quashing the convictions. He is not going to be preoccupied with world order. He is not going to be preoccupied with a transition. Yep. And insofar as anything like that happens, it is going to be left to the likes of Vance and Musk and RFK Jr. So I'm afraid they're the ones who are going to be in charge of the shop while Trump goes off and deals with whatever it is that Trump feels in the moment that he needs to deal with. And that might be sharks and magnets, and it might be, as you say, his 91 felony counts, and who knows what else it might be.
Sarah, while you're speaking, we're getting a few comments coming in from listeners along the lines of saying that it sounds like you perhaps haven't learned the lessons of 2016, that you're sneering at Trump voters, calling them foolish and racist and so on. How would you respond to that?
I would just say, pay attention to what you're watching. There is no lesson to learn here except that this is what they want. I'm not sneering at them. I am saying that if this is what you choose, we're all going to be looking at the consequences of this choice. And I would ask those listeners what they think is a defensible reason for voting for Donald Trump after the 8 years that we have watched, what they think makes him fit for the office that he has just been elected to. Do they really think, as Max says, that this man should be the leader of the free world? And if so, then I'm not sure that your listeners and I will ever find common ground.
Max, no, but I would agree about that. I think Trump represents a freak show. And the reason many of us are so appalled this morning by the outcome, not surprised, but appalled, is that the American people have voted for a freak show to take over not only the leadership of the United States, but the leadership of the Western world. And that seems reason enough to be scared.
Before I let you both go, just one question I'd like to ask both of you about some of Trump's more alarming rhetoric, one might say, about how he's going to be a dictator on day one, about how if he's voted for this time, then the American people won't need another election and so on. Is that just rhetoric, or is there a bit of him that means it? What do you think about that, Max?
I think we're all very apprehensive. And as Sarah so rightly said, the people around Trump are pretty freaky. I mean, RFK Jr., to say the least of it. There are some very weird people out there. And if they mean half of what they've said during this campaign, then we're fearful not just for the immediate future of American government, but for democracy in the United States.
Sarah, what would you say about that?
He absolutely means it. Of course, he means it. He says these things, and then he tries to roll them back because he's always throwing out trial balloons to see how much he can get away with. He said he wants to bring the military, put the military against American citizens. He said he wants to deport 20 million people. Well, if he is able to do that, then that is going to be a major problem for the world as well as for the United States, because where are those 20 million people going to go, et cetera, et cetera. But yes, he has said, as you rightly said, Hugo, that he said, we're not going to have elections again. I mean, that clearly is what they would like to have happen. Project 2025 made clear what it is that they want to lay out. They want to replace the civil service with loyalists, and they want to dismantle the administrative state. They want to abolish the Department of Education. And again, your listeners may think that I'm freaking out, but they just need to read Project 2025 on Wikipedia to see that that is in fact the project that they have laid out. So, everybody said in 2016 that Trump didn't mean it, and that he would pivot and he would govern from the center and he would normalize, and the people around him would, bring him under control. Well, the people around him called him a fascist, and they said, and I'm referring to Milley and to John Kelly, who were his senior aides. They both came out before the election saying he was a fascist and that he wasn't fit to hold office.
Yep.
So they think he's going to do it. So, or at least that he's going to try. And so I'm afraid that I have no choice but to agree with them because they saw him on a daily basis.
Sure. Thank you very much, both of you. I'm afraid we've got to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Sarah Churchwell and Sir Max Hastings. This is Hugo Rifkind here on Times Radio. It's over, it's done. Donald Trump has secured enough electoral college votes to win the US presidential election. After flipping the key swing states of Pennsylvania and Wisconsin from blue to red, Trump has passed the 270 threshold to put him back in the White House. His vice president-elect, J.D. Vance, has called this the greatest political comeback in the history of the USA. To digest the result, I'm joined by the Democratic strategist Nicole Brenner-Schmidt in Washington, D.C., and the Trump surrogate, meaning somebody who speaks publicly on behalf of a candidate, Mario Kranjak in New Jersey. Welcome to both of you. Mario, I'll start with you. What won it for Trump, would you say?
So good morning and good result. Great result. Trump had a focused campaign, and it was actually the truthfully joyful campaign. And as confident campaigns go, it was not a negative campaign, despite what your prior guest said. Donald Trump had 4 great years as president that the media here wanted us to forget. And he did a great job of reminding, and his team did a great job of reminding everyone how great those 4 years were and how terrible the 4 Biden-Kamala Harris years have been. Kamala was desperate, and the name calling never works, having run my own campaigns and won in largely Democratic areas twice, got reelected as mayor of the beautiful town that you see behind us on the Palisades and the Hudson River. Look, Donald Trump resonated with the voters. He's going to restore law and order. He's going to focus the country back where it should be focused. And when you restore law and order at home, you also restore the world order. And we're very hopeful that there'll be world peace and that all the problems of the Kamala Harris, Biden, I would say regime, because that was the truly fascist regime, that goes away. It gets fixed. America heals, and we move forward as the great country that we are. He's not going to make America just greater, great. He's going to make it greater than it's ever been, and we're very happy about that. And many parties last night were attended.
I'm sure. Look, stick with us, Mario. Let me go now to Nicole Brenner-Schmidt, who's a Democratic strategist. Nicole, what went wrong from your perspective? What was behind the Kamala Harris disaster? Was it a disaster, and was it her disaster, or was it Donald Trump's victory?
Well, look, we're going to spend a lot of time in the next week analyzing this, and certainly the Democratic Party is going to spend a lot of time taking a hard look at this. If they really want to start from a point of analyzing that, we have to look at who were we trying to communicate with and where did we lose? So what is the, we know that Hispanic men really broke for Donald Trump. We need to take a look and figure out why that is. But you're going to see a lot of finger pointing to a million reasons as well. She didn't have enough time. Did she pick the right running mate? There's going to be tons of speculation, but the Democratic Party is certainly going to have to really dissect this and take a look at it. But in the next day, what we're still doing is counting votes for a lot of races, Senate, House. We might not know who's in control of the House for weeks because of how long it takes California to count some votes, and it comes down to that. So they're going to be focused still on what's in front of us from this election as well.
Mario Kranjak, the world is sort of waiting to see what Donald Trump actually does in office. Elon Musk wants him to send rockets to Mars, and RFK Jr. wants him to remove fluoride from drinking water. Which of those do you hope will be his priority?
As I said before, he has his own priorities, and his surrogates may have their own, but he's focused. And look, America over the last 10 or 20 years has shown where people have been separated from their country by the globalists. Husbands been separated from their wives. Children have been separated from their parents. All the social engineering that's happened. It's all got to go back to normalcy, where you can't just project your own craziness onto other people's children. Look, whatever is the healthiest route will be taken. If fixing the drinking water is the route to take, that's what'll happen. If putting people on Mars is what people think is the right thing to do, then perhaps that will be the right thing. Although I think there's more immediate concerns. Look, Elon Musk is a great thinker. He's a great thought leader. He was in the Donald Trump camp, which says a lot. It's great to have entertainers come out and Barack Obama come out and campaign for you. But let's face it, Barack Obama never helped anyone other than himself. And entertainers are great entertainers, but why should they be considered thought leaders? And by the way, if you're going to pay Beyonce $11 million to show up and not sing, then you really got to rethink your priorities in life, which is exactly what Kamala Harris did. A campaign of joy turned into a campaign of desperation, right? And that's what we're looking at today.
Nicole, if I can ask you, do you think, is there an element here that the US is just not ready for a woman as president?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a factor. I don't think that it is the only one, but it's completely naive to ignore that fact and to not take a hard look at, did people feel that a woman should be leading this country? But it's also, did they think it should be this woman?
No, any super PAC that he's funded for a ground game has been a waste, because I've been out there every day. There is no ground game. There's no Trump ground game. Kamala Harris has an amazing ground game.
So, Joe, who do you think is going to win the election at this point?
Nobody knows, right? But I'll say it. I think she's going to win. I think Kamala Harris will win. I think she'll win by more than people think. If I had to put my money down, that's what I'd say.
Early voting has kind of indicated that point. We've seen that, I think in Pennsylvania, that seniors aren't coming out for Trump in the ways that they previously have. I mean, why do you think that is?
And again, I'm no expert. I'm just someone who's been out on the road every day in these battleground states. Two observations I'd make. I hear over and over from people, and I've been talking to people in the middle, independents and soft Republicans. I hear over and over from these people that they're tired of Trump. They're tired of the chaos. They're tired of the crap, all of that. And then the other thing I've heard over and over every day is Republicans coming up to me and saying, Joe, I'm going to vote for her, but I can't say it publicly. I've heard that in every state I've gone in, overwhelmingly. So there might be something there.
Do you think that there's anything left that can make a difference? For people that are still researching, that are still undecided, do things like, the Puerto Rico comments make a bit of a difference?
They made a huge difference. Is there anything that can be done now? No. But when we look back on, if I'm right and she wins, that Madison Square Garden rally will be a turning point. And what was said there, for some reason that reached regular voters. That reached people who might not have voted. I did an event in Northwest Pennsylvania the following day with former President Bill Clinton, a rally for Kamala Harris. And I had a few people come up to me and say now they're going to vote because of what they heard. And Bill Clinton said, we're all Puerto Ricans today. I think that made a difference.
What do you think the reaction was inside of the Trump campaign to hearing those kinds of comments, and then the stuff that he said about Liz Cheney saying that he wanted to see a firing squad?
I don't blame him for sticking with his daughter, but his daughter is a very dumb individual, very dumb. She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face. You know, they're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, oh, gee, let's send 10,000 troops right into the mouth of the enemy. But she's a stupid person. And I used to I'd have meetings with a lot of people, and she always wanted to go to war with people.
Look, inside Trump's camp, you say, if you decide to work for this guy, screw you. You sold your soul. Anybody who would work for him, he's a horrible human being. So, sorry, yeah, maybe they were upset at what they heard at Madison Square Garden. Maybe they were upset with what he said about Liz Cheney. Big effing deal. He says a million things like that every day. So you ride that. If you work for Trump, you ride that big bad Bronco.
I mean, we had Chuck Todd on yesterday, and he said, in 2016, when Trump obviously won, the last month before the election, he really was a bit more disciplined and prevented himself from, saying this kind of stuff. And it's almost acting like he doesn't want to win this time around. The fact that, he's saying these sorts of things. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's that he doesn't want to win. Look, he's older. He's a horrible person, but now he's 78, so I think he's also a little more whacked in the head. But here's the other thing. He believes that this ugly, bigoted, fear-mongering, all the hate that he puts out, he and his team believes it appeals to people beyond his base. They think it works. Fear's a great motivator. I think they believe that they can scare people beyond just his voters into voting for him. I think that's what he's been doing now for months.
What kind of an impact do you think that Elon Musk is going to have on this election, his super PAC?
And hopefully you can hear me, Morgan. I think Elon Musk has had a huge impact on this election. He's got God's money. He's the richest man on the planet. He's all in with Trump. He owns that very popular platform. He has helped Trump bring out young men, buying all of this bull crap. I think he's helped Trump turn off women. But generally, I think for Trump, it's probably been a huge plus.
But then we've seen that 9 Republican operatives and canvassers connected to the PAC, they said to NBC News they're worried that the grassroots operation could actually hamper his chances in some of those states decided by slip.
Yeah, Morgan. Look, Trump has zero grassroots effort. He's got zero ground game. I mean, zero. So any money Elon's been putting into that has been money that's been blown. I'm just saying in general, Musk's endorsement and all in with Trump has helped Trump. But no, any super PAC that he's funded for a ground game has been a waste because I've been out there every day. There is no ground game. There's no Trump ground game. Kamala Harris has an amazing ground game.
I finally just wanted to ask you about Trump in Albuquerque. He was there, and then he was kind of haunted by these unpaid bills, and the city basically, I think they were unpaid bills from 2019, and the city basically wouldn't let his event go ahead. I was just wondering what your reaction was to that.
He's been a deadbeat. I'm only laughing because we're 2 or 3 days away from the election. And what the hell? This is who he is. He's been a deadbeat his whole life. He's left a trail of unpaid vendors and contractors behind him his whole life. He's a horrible man. He's a pathological liar. He's a traitor. He's a wannabe dictator. He's a jerk. You'd never want to work with him. You'd never want to work for him. You'd never want your daughters or your sisters or anybody around him. But here's the thing. We may elect him president again. Kamala Harris has run a great campaign. If she loses, none of this is on her. If she loses, it's because America wanted an absolute bad guy. I mean, a horrible guy to be their president. There's nothing more that she could have done.
What do you think he wants to get and to gain from his alliance with Donald Trump?
Well, first of all, Elon is not far right. So let's just get something clear here. Donald Trump is not far right. This crap I'm not interested in talking about, So if you come from that side of the fence yourselves, I'm not really interested in talking about it with you. He's dead center. Elon is dead center. So just like the crowds that protested in England about the circumstances that they were unhappy with, none of them were far right. They were just ordinary people expressing legitimate grievances.
Well, I'm sorry,
yeah,
but they were
obviously
they were prosecuted in this country for their racism and for their aggression, and they have been treated in our criminal justice system. So
no, they haven't.
Many people, they didn't have legitimate.
You have the worst government, I think, in the history of the UK over the last 400 years. Right now, no, they were not racist. They were complaining about the circumstances that they are being forced to endure. That's not racist. That's common sense. So, this talk about everybody who doesn't, who says they don't like something is racist. No, that's rubbish. So let's just get something clear. If that's how you think, then I have nothing to say to you. You are part of a group that I consider useless. And so, no.
But why would you consider me useless? This is my country. I'm a citizen.
Yes, I consider
within this country, and people were convicted on criminal charges.
But could you? No, it's not criminal.
In front of
what they did was not criminal.
To talk about
what they did was not criminal. The thing is, what they did was not criminal. So let's get clear on that. The Starmer guy is a joke. He needs to resign. He's the worst example of a prime minister I've ever come across. He doesn't even look the part. And so, anyway, if you think along those lines, you have everything wrong. The hope we have, Elon is a very sensible person. He's my son, and apart from anything else, he's smarter than probably anybody I've ever met. So, he has taken time himself to learn. A few years ago, he considered me evil for saying that I think Trump is the right way to go. That was 7 years ago, I think. And he was very unhappy about that. And he felt I embarrassed him with his friends. But since then, he's actually, sort of realized and seen the light. And he now has seen what has to happen to maintain the country in which he moved to, which in fact his grandfather was born in, on his mother's side. And he wants to keep that country the way it is, a first-rate country, not a basket case. So it's well on its way to becoming a basket case, just like the UK. The UK is a basket case.
Why are we a basket case?
Well, if you don't know, then there's really nothing for me to talk to you about.
You sound a little bit more angry with me than I am attempting.
No, I don't even know you. But when I hear nonsense, listen, I don't even know you. But when I hear nonsense, you're not talking to the silly brigade here. You're talking to someone who is smart. I'm a smart person. I don't like to put it like that. Sounds very corny. But I'm not one of the normals the types that you normally talk to. You're talking to the real thing here. So let's get real, okay? So if you're going to come to me with stories about these people that committed crimes and everything, it's nonsense. This Starmer needs to resign. He's no good. He's no good. He's taken England, and his group have taken England back 400 years to the times of Cromwell and possibly Henry VIII.
But the
So if
Labour
you can't see that, then we have nothing to talk about.
Okay, can I just put one final point to you, and then it's
Yes.
absolutely up to you if you don't want to carry on the conversation at all.
Yes.
I would love to, but you may not want to. The Labour government has only been in power for nearly, 5 months. There was 14 years of Conservative rule in this country beforehand. I think it is just a little unfair. I'm saying this simply from a journalist perspective, for you to be so condemnatory over such a short period of time of a government that, I don't wish to be rude here, you are not living under. So I feel obliged as a journalist to just put that point to you. Is that okay?
Yes, look, the Conservative government that you had was obviously not particularly competent. And, they were obviously have been taking their instructions from some central organization that's, in fact, giving all the governments in the world their instructions, because all the countries in the world, in Europe particularly, I mean, are letting in, immigrants, uncontrolled immigration.
Okay,
and they're obviously getting their instructions from somewhere to do this.
Right, what is that central organization?
I don't know. I'm not really sure, but it is obviously, I'm not stupid. It's easy to work it out. I think it's basically a primary school problem to work out. Somebody's giving instructions. So they're giving Macron instructions, they're giving the Germans, they're giving the Spanish, they're giving the Italians, they're giving the Greeks, they're giving America. This is what you've got to do. You've got to let these people in, and you must make them citizens, and you must bring them in by the millions. And somebody's giving those instructions. And if you can't work that out, then I don't think really we have anything to talk about, because there's nothing I could communicate with you on if you can't understand that. So, now, as far as your Conservative government is concerned, Johnson, I'd like to get hold of him, comb his hair, actually. But apart from that, they were not much better. However, this new lot that you've got in, it's the condemnation of Starmer is widespread. It's not just me. It's thousands of intellectuals who are saying this Starmer has turned out to be something really bad.
Okay.
So,
do you think that he's taking orders from a shady central organization? I'm still interested by who might be in that central organization.
Well, we'd all like to know. We'd all like to know what the central organization is. But if you think that all these governments are doing this all by themselves, individually, well, then I think you need to go back to primary school. They are obviously getting instructions, and this is what they're doing. They get elected on the basis that they're going to stop unbridled immigration. As soon as they're in, they don't. Then they accelerate unbridled immigration. So somebody's telling them what they have to do, and it's obviously. It's so obvious that I don't want to go on about it.
Okay.
If you can't understand it, we have nothing to talk about.
No, I'm interested by your view, and I hope you're vaguely interested by my.
Not my view. It's a general view in the world.
Okay, but let me just pose one more question about that, though. The countries that you've mentioned, they are trying to fight the tide of immigration. They are trying to push back against a lot of people coming into their countries. Italy claims some success over that. Germany, after welcoming immigrants, has had certain problems over there. And the democracy in Germany has voted in a party that is seeking to curb immigration. So I don't really see your point that there's somebody above all of that who is influencing what
No. What
do.
has happened under Merkel in Germany? She initiated this uncontrolled immigration under instruction from somebody. Then the people started electing different representatives. And as the different representatives came in, they started pushing back. And this is what's happened. The newly elected people are pushing back. And so you might have hoped, for example, that in your election recently, when you had this Labour election, which I was talking to somebody in England yesterday, and they were saying on television, they were saying that it's only 4 out of 5 people in Britain did not vote for this Labour government. I'm not quite sure how they mean. But at any rate, your Labour government that's in there now has actually accelerated, has actually done the opposite. They've accelerated illegal immigration. And this is what I tell you. You can write this down. and then you keep it in your purse somewhere. If Starmer doesn't
I don't have a
release,
purse, actually. I've got a notebook. It's exactly
all
the
right,
same
your notebook,
size as a man's.
then if Starmer doesn't release the people that these ordinary people that he's put in prison and removed and emptied prisons of hardcore criminals to put these people in, and if you can't understand the absurdity of that, then we have nothing to talk about. You know, you're obviously on the side that we are trying to get rid of, and so so if you can't understand that, then it's difficult. So if he doesn't release these people and put these criminals back in prison that have actually committed crimes, then there's going to be the British people. Well, let's put it like this: if the British people don't eventually turn around, they're a bit slow. Generally, England has always been a bit slow to react, which is good. They don't just impulsively react in general over the hundreds of years that have passed. But if they don't react against this government, this Starmer government, which will continue to do worse things, then one has to come to the conclusion that, just like the Germans in the 30s, they are complicit with the government.
What do you mean?
Just like the Germans in the 30s, who saw what was happening, to ordinary people put in prison, then if the British people don't stand up against Starmer doing this, because he's going to do more of it, then the British people are complicit. Then the British people then the British population is complicit with the Labour government, just like the Germans were in the in the 30s.
Who are you comparing Sir Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, to in that analogy?
Well, I would probably compare him to the communist rulers of, the past. I would say he did work as an agent for the Soviet Union in Czechoslovakia as a student. So he is a communist.
Starmer was a Russian spy.
Apparently, yes.
Gosh, I had no idea.
Yeah, he worked. He was as a student. He worked as an agent for the Soviet Union in Czechoslovakia. I read all about it. So you should also read about it. Anyway,
I'll make time for it.
That's irrelevant because as a student we all do silly things.
Yes. Okay. Can I just ask you a couple of questions about your son, because the world is really fascinated by him and his actions at the moment.
Yes.
When was the last time you spoke to him?
I don't know. Thursday last week.
And how is he feeling about everything that's going on in his world at the moment?
Well, we talk about family affairs. We don't talk about. I tell him that he's doing the right thing. You know, obviously, I don't. As I say, a few years ago, he was very upset with me about the fact that I said, "Look, the world is going the wrong way," and he didn't understand that at the time, and he's now, like many people, has now realized that, and he's now changed. So it's not like I want to say to him, I've never actually said to him, well, I see you've, sort of changed and seen what I was saying, or you've seen the light or something. No, I don't. We don't talk like that. He's my son, so I support him in every way I can, and tell him when I think he's doing the right thing, or it's difficult for me to say to him straight out, you're doing the wrong thing. Try that with any of your children. But no, it's difficult. So you should try and support him and say, well done. And I mean, last week for us, it was more to do with the fact that his extraordinary achievements, added $40 billion to his net worth, and about quite a similar, not quite a large amount to my other son as well, because he's also involved. And the things that they did were beyond the realm and scope of ordinary people, such as catching this 32-story rocket with tweezers and such like.
Yes, remarkable thing to witness. What would you say motivates him? I mean, it's interesting you've mentioned that sum of money. I mean, it's hard, our eyes spin, don't they, when we look at the accumulation of his wealth. He is the richest person in the world at the moment. Is that something that you saw in him as a much younger man and as a boy, that desire to accumulate and to have?
No, money is the last thing. I know in England, I was talking to people on Talk Radio London last week. I was interviewed by them, and they kept talking about money, all the money. No, we don't think about money at all. We do things for the reason that we want to do them. The money comes by itself. So a lesson that you can give to people who, don't seem to make a successful life is, if you do something well and you work hard on it, then things like money come by itself. They start flowing in automatically. You don't have to focus on getting money. So we don't focus on money at all. So, and Elon certainly doesn't focus on money. And as you can imagine, he uses most of the money he gets to move things forward in things like the race to space, and to make improvements there, which most people would not do. They take their little packet of money and go and settle in Portugal or something. But no,
what does
we are not like that. We make the best we can of life. I'm 78. I still fly an airplane. I just completed an transatlantic ocean race. I still do all that stuff. I have two small children, one of 7 and one of 5. My oldest is 53. That's Elon. We are the sort of people who give things a go. We want to give things a go. In fact, I would imagine we are essentially quite English people. Our background is really quite English in the sense that we believe that we are, like most English people, that we have a duty to do the best we can. And as I said on the radio the other night, it's terrible to see what's going on in England now, because in fact, at least half of the most famous people in the world in the last few hundred years come from England. So it's very sad to see England going down in this. You don't have to be a genius to realize to say that Starmer is a fascist government. I mean, it's totally fascist. There's nothing, there's absolutely nothing democratic about it. It's totally fascist. The things they're doing.
They won a general election, Errol. It was a
something went wrong with that election.
Process.
Something went wrong with this election. Something went wrong because I was told by people in England, I think it was on talk radio or something, that 4 out of 5 of the people didn't vote for this party. Something went wrong with this last election. So either people didn't vote because they were disillusioned with the Conservatives or something like that, but something went wrong in this last election. What you need now in England, this guy Starmer needs to resign. Look, so this is what I'm saying to you is, you can write it down. This is serious. You're getting stuff that's quite heavy, important and valuable. Starmer needs to resign, and they need to hold a new election in England. And this will, because the people have had a wake-up call now. They need to re-elect a government in this country. This government that you've got now is the stairway to hell. So quote me on that. Stairway to hell is Starmer's government. So just like you might say in years gone by, if you read history, I don't know if you read history, but Cromwell's government was a stairway to hell.
Right. Well, these are extraordinary comparisons, and I think actually, if you put it out to our listeners, and when this interview goes out, we'll do exactly that. And I was to ask people whether they felt that they were at the bottom step of a stairway to hell. I don't think you'd get 4 out of 5 people saying yes.
Well, let's see. And
I think to call a government
what you think is not the point.
It's a loaded term, Errol. It is a loaded term, fascism.
Well, fascism is iron rod control and not allowing, you might say, free speech. That basically is what fascism is. It's not very complicated. It's a type of control. You might even say, if you want to be, most people struggle with the definitions of communism and fascism and so forth. But if you want to, on a light note, if you wanted to think of what is fascistic, you take the average high school, where the headmaster is let's say of the past. I'm not particularly looking at some weird type of high school now. Talking about the typical high school of the last 50 years. The headmaster is he has an iron rod of control. He dishes out caning, which is what happened in my life, for the slightest transgression. You have to sit up straight in your classrooms all the time. You may not speak. The teachers are the second level of control. In some ways, if you wanted to ask what a fascistic society is, then you'd say, well, yes, the typical high school of the, I'm talking about a more or less a proper high school, you could say, of the last 50 years is typically fascistic setup. But because the children really have little say in what happens, they're the population, and so, and if they don't agree, they get caned. So that's a typical fascist setup. But no, what you've got now is very un-English. If you can't see it, I'm sorry for you. If you can't see what you've got in England now, then I'm very, very sorry for you.